All right, welcome to the Explainer. When we try to picture the future, our minds almost immediately jump to a few specific brands. The ones, the companies with those flashy product launches, the celebrity CEOs. We kind of just assume they're the ones single-handedly pushing humanity forward. But here's the thing, the brands we think are building the future, they are absolutely not acting alone. Actually, they're really just the tip of a massive hidden iceberg.
Apple, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, Nvidia, OpenAI. These household names completely dominate our news feeds, our stock portfolios, and pretty much all of our conversations about tech. I mean, we literally see their logos every single day. So naturally, we assume they are the sole architects of the 21st century. But I want you to stop and ask yourself a really critical question. Who is actually building the future? Are these famous, highly visible names the whole story? Honestly, not even close. Behind every single one of those tech giants is an invisible network of companies that most of us have never even heard of. So today, we're going to uncover exactly who they are and how they operate. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll kick things off by looking at the visible versus the invisible, then trace history's hidden supply chains, dive into the ecosystem powering AI, break down the unique traits of these quiet innovators, look at the current infrastructure renaissance, and finally, wrap up with who is building tomorrow's technologies. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The visible versus invisible, or as I like to call it, the hidden iceberg. So we need to explore this massive gap between the sleek, flashy consumer products we hold in our hands every day and the deeply complex companies operating entirely beneath the surface. Think about it. Artificial intelligence breakthroughs, electric vehicles, advanced semiconductors, modern hospitals, satellites, even just that smartphone in your pocket. Behind every single one of these modern miracles is a whole ecosystem of invisible companies quietly making them possible. Without these hidden players doing the heavy lifting, the tech that defines our modern world simply wouldn't exist. They are literally laying the groundwork years before the rest of us even notice a new trend has arrived. Moving on to Section 2, History's Hidden Supply Chain. To really grasp how this invisible dynamic works today, we kind of need to anchor it in history. Because believe it or not, this exact pattern has played out time and time again. Think back to the California gold rush. Everybody knows about the miners, right? The risk takers seeking glory out in the rivers. We've all heard their stories. But what about the hidden supply chain? The folks selling the pickaxes, the clothing, the transportation, the essential equipment. It turns out the greatest and most reliable fortunes weren't always made by the miners themselves. They were actually made by the invisible companies supplying the tools.
And we saw the exact same thing play out during the Industrial Revolution. Sure, the highly visible railroads and massive factories completely changed the world's landscape. But those sweeping railroads, they were entirely dependent on quietly operating steel producers. And those massive factories, completely reliant on machine tool manufacturers. The businesses enabling the revolution quietly became just as valuable as the businesses leading it. Section 3, the ecosystem powering AI. Now, what's fascinating is how seamlessly we can map that historical pattern directly onto today's AI boom. On the consumer side, it feels like pure magic. You've got chatbots answering complex questions, image generators creating stunning art out of thin air, and code assistants writing software in seconds. But hidden in the background, there's a totally different reality. None of those digital systems can function without a truly staggering amount of physical infrastructure. I mean, somebody has to build the massive data centers. Somebody has to supply the highly specialized cooling systems to keep those servers from literally melting down. Somebody has to lay the fiber optic networking. The companies solving these intensely physical problems, they rarely make the headlines, but they are absolutely the bedrock of the entire AI economy. Let's actually drill down a bit further into the very foundation of that AI, the chips themselves. Building the world's most advanced computer chips requires one of the most complex industrial ecosystems ever created. We're talking specialized optics, ultra-pure chemicals, industrial gases, precision lasers, advanced packaging. Each of these critical technologies comes from businesses focused on problems so incredibly specialized that almost no one outside the industry even knows they exist. And yet every single AI processor completely depends on them. But hey, this dynamic isn't just isolated to AI. This quiet innovation is also the driving force behind modern healthcare and industrial automation. If you walk through a modern factory today, the robots, the sensors monitoring production, the machine vision systems inspecting products at lightning speed, all of that is powered by these behind-the-scenes companies. Same goes for healthcare. Massive medical breakthroughs rely heavily on lab equipment, precision instruments, and diagnostic systems made by companies that remain totally unknown to the very patients whose lives they save. Which brings us to Section 4, Traits of Quiet Innovators.
So, what makes these hidden giants tick? How are they so wildly successful, yet so entirely invisible to the public? Well, it really comes down to three distinct traits in their DNA. First up, they solve difficult engineering problems rather than consumer problems. Instead of racking their brains over how to sell millions of smartphones to everyday people, they are completely obsessed with engineering hurdles. They're figuring out how to manufacture components at scales measured in nanometers, or how to move data faster between processors, or even how to slash energy consumption inside massive industrial facilities. And you might wonder, why does that engineering obsession matter so much? Well, a fraction of a percent. That is literally all it takes. If one of these hidden companies can figure out a way to improve a semiconductor yield or boost a factory's productivity by just a tiny fraction of a percent, that seemingly microscopic advantage translates into billions of dollars in value for their customers. It's crazy, but small, hyper-specific improvements create enormous wealth. Let's look at the second trait. They compete through expertise rather than marketing. I mean, you are never going to see a primetime TV commercial for ultra-pure industrial gases. Why? Because their target audience is engineers, scientists, and governments. In this ecosystem, raw technical performance completely outshines brand recognition. The best, most precise tool simply wins the contract. End of story, no matter how invisible the brand is to the general public. And the third trait, they think in decades rather than quarters. Developing advanced manufacturing equipment isn't like pushing out a quick software update. It can require years of grueling research. These companies spend decades building durable relationships and winning their customers' trust over many, many production cycles. This long-term mindset creates these remarkably durable businesses that weather economic storms way better than the latest consumer fad. All right, Section 5, the infrastructure renaissance. This brings us to a profound global economic shift that's happening right under our noses, completely reshaping how countries view technology. Today, we're seeing massive strategic global investments pouring directly into semiconductor manufacturing, advanced materials, industrial research, energy infrastructure, and robotics. For decades, a lot of economies were hyper-focused mainly on digital services. But right now, governments worldwide are waking up to the reality that physical infrastructure really matters again. Economic leadership is heavily dependent on the industrial ecosystems supporting the software. Factories matter, manufacturing matters, engineering matters, and billions of investment dollars are flowing exactly in that direction. And all of this creates this phenomenal compounding cycle. Step 1. Every new AI breakthrough requires better chips. Step 2. Those better chips demand better, much more precise manufacturing equipment. Step 3. All that crazy computing power means we need more data centers, which in turn require better cooling systems. You see how it works? Technological progress continuously creates massive demand for the very businesses that enable further progress. Basically, the faster the visible tech giants run, the more physical infrastructure they have to buy from these hidden champions.
Let's wrap up with Section 6, Building Tomorrow's Technologies.
Looking ahead, what are these hidden champions quietly constructing for the next generation of human advancement? We are talking about things like quantum computing, advanced batteries, synthetic biology, space manufacturing, and fusion energy. These are absolutely mind-bending sectors being meticulously developed right this second by companies that almost nobody talks about today. But make no mistake, the companies solving these incredibly difficult physical problems right now, they are going to become the essential, foundational industries of tomorrow. All of this brings us to a quote that perfectly summarizes our explainer today. The future isn't built only by the companies everyone knows. It's built by thousands of companies almost nobody talks about. That is the absolute core takeaway here. History definitely has a habit of celebrating the highly visible innovators unveiling those revolutionary consumer products. But behind every single headline is an invisible network of engineers, researchers, and industrial specialists quietly acting as the true architects of our world. So, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. What impossible problems are being solved today that you will completely take for granted tomorrow? Next time you use a breakthrough piece of tech, take just a second to look past that famous logo and think about the quiet innovators working relentlessly behind the scenes. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the hidden machinery of our world, and as always, keep exploring.